Welcome to the Propel Podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. I'm your host, Larry Witzel. If God is giving you big dreams for growing His kingdom, then this podcast is for you. Our goal is to offer practical training for effective evangelism in the Seventh-day Adventist ministry context, but we know that the principles we talk about are applicable in many other churches as well. So wherever you're doing ministry, welcome to the Propel Podcast. We're now on our third episode of this new season of the Propel Podcast, featuring content from the 2024 Propel Conference. It was an incredible experience filled with inspiring speakers and innovative outreach training. There's nothing like attending a Propel Conference in person, where you connect with other passionate pastors and church leaders to fuel your mission for Jesus. So please join us for the 2025 Propel Conference, coming to Tacoma, Washington, April 27 to 30 next year. We'll be at the beautiful Puget Sound, ready for 4 days of inspiration and innovation to grow your church. So mark your calendars for April 27 to 30, 2025, and we can't wait to see you there. This episode features a breakout session with two speakers, Brent Hardinge and Marshall McKenzie from Adventist Information Ministry. Brent Hardinge is the director of Adventist Information Ministry, also known as AIM. He's also Assistant Vice President for Digital Media for the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists, where he oversees the Evangelistic Contact Center and supports digital evangelism. Brent is an experienced communicator with a passion for helping the church use technology to reach the community. I've personally known Brent professionally for almost 25 years and tracked his career as a developer at BibleInfo.com and the North Pacific Union Conference, as well as at the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, where he standardized design for the denomination's many web properties around the world. Marshall McKenzie is the Assistant Director for Pastoral Care at AIM. With over 30 years in ministry, Marshall's ministerial experience is broad and includes pastoral and public evangelism, publishing, church growth, and international mission service. When SermonView first launched our interest tracker, CRM for evangelism, Marshall was working in Kentucky and Tennessee, and I had many long conversations with him about this online tool for tracking evangelistic interests as we worked together to make it even more effective. And so I was excited that both of these men of God were willing to share their experience in digital evangelism at the Propel Conference. In this presentation, Brent and Marshall discuss the importance of using digital resources to reach the community and find lost people. They highlight how AIM is accomplishing this goal by serving as a contact center, engaging the community through phone and digital interactions. AIM emphasizes digital evangelism as digital platforms grow to offer a low barrier entry point for those hesitant about attending church in person. AIM's key focuses are digital marketing, immediate response, and pastoral care, aiming to capture attention, foster meaningful dialogues, and connect individuals with local churches. This is a great report on their work with a lot of practical lessons for your own digital ministry, and I think that you're going to appreciate it. Before we get to their presentation, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Seminars Unlimited. Their purpose is to serve your mission. With over 40 years of experience, they offer design, social media, banners, printing, bindery, and mailing of custom handbills and Bible study response cards. Evangelism is their passion, and you should definitely consider them for your evangelism marketing. You can learn more at their website, seminarsunlimited.org, or by calling 1-800-982-3344. All right, let's get to the heart of today's podcast. Here are Brent Hardinge and Marshall McKenzie with a presentation from the Digital Evangelism Breakout Track of the 2024 Propel Conference. Their topic, Digging Deeper in a Digital World.
Over the years, the methods of connecting with people has changed. And where traditionally it maybe has started with letters, it started with knocking on doors. It's a little harder to do that now. People are more absorbed and busy with their life. And we have seen over the last probably 10 years or more, a continuous decline in the number of calls that come in. Less and less people are calling, and more people are going online to make those connections. So why is digital evangelism important? Why are we talking about that? And why is that here? And through digital, through devices, it gives us an avenue into people's life. 93% of Americans have access to the internet as of last year. And 92% own a smartphone. And 91% are on social media of some sort, some type of social media. This is a huge avenue that we have to reach people. And today we're going to talk about how to effectively reach people and the difference between them seeing you and actually having a conversation. So just because I see the McDonald's down the street doesn't mean I stop in there. But I see it and I know it's there. So this website, has anyone heard of apictureofgod.com? I see one, good. So it's a online Bible school, series of Bible lessons that you can step through at your own pace. So if you want to study about heaven and then you want to study about creation or whichever one, you can kind of go through that. But we have had on there, for a couple of years, we've had live chat. But in the last year, we've been spending a lot more time on that live chat, responding to people when they write in. And late last year, a lady, Tyranny, wrote in and she said, "I'm ready to join a community to worship with. I just started studying the Bible and want a better understanding and grasp of what I'm reading." So Marshall happened to have his computer open. It popped up. He wrote back to her and reached out and found an address, looked up a church, and within 15 minutes, he had Tyranny's phone number and information to the pastor. And he said, "Hang up from now." He says, "You need to call her back." And that began a series of Bible studies. The pastor reached out to her, and I want to share a little video here of Tyranny sharing her story.
And today I decided to get baptized. I have a Christian family. Started very young in church. Me and my twin brother with our great uncle, great aunt, got baptized at a very young age. Really didn't know what baptism was. I'm not going to say we really didn't know, we didn't know. I've been receiving lessons from pastors since September of last year. I met him through just reaching out to a chat online. And he reached out to me the same day. And we started lessons like the very next week. And we haven't stopped since. He was very dedicated and committed to spending time with me, encouraging me, praying with me, and teaching me things that I never knew about. And I really appreciate Pastor Jackson for doing that.
So when we say, why is digital evangelism important? It's because of things like this. It opens an avenue, it opens a door for people who may not be ready to walk into a church because they don't know. They don't know what happens inside that door. They don't know anybody. And it gives them a low impact way of meeting someone. And if we're not there to respond, we're going to lose those opportunities to meet those people. So AIM really has 3 parts to what we do. There's digital marketing, there's immediate response, and there's pastoral care. And the first one, digital marketing, is just about getting people's attention. And how can we capture their attention slow them down from that scroll or wherever they are, and get them to respond. Maybe it is answering a question, maybe it is some other way that we're looking to reach out, but it is something that we can give them a hook to stop and reach out. And then the second piece is the immediate response. And part of that is answering the immediate question. But part of that, as Marshall will share, is asking the right questions as you begin to develop that conversation, so that it's not just talking about the weather and the rain outside, or talking about how they didn't sleep well last night, but it is leading that conversation further and further along. And that's really where the pastoral care piece comes in. Because we have had and we've experienced real ministry conversations happening on a daily basis with people that have not yet walked into a church. And yet they know every day if they have a prayer request, if they have a need, they can pull open their phone and they can reach out with those questions. And that somebody is out there caring for them, praying for them, and working to help develop what they're doing. This is a snapshot of who AIM is. So AIM is, we have about 70 people, students that are working with us right now at Andrews University. We're opening a new campus here at Walla Walla this year. So looking to expand here on the West Coast as well. But these are not all theology students. Many of them are, but many of them are business students. They're studying nursing or healthcare. They are studying history or music, and yet they are all passionate about reaching people. And they are learning through the experiences that they have, not only how to lead people through conversations now, but also how to become effective church members when they graduate and they come and show up in your churches here in your communities. So we have a digital frontier, a digital place, a digital place that really is untapped to how we can reach out. And I know it seems like we've been saying this for a long time, because it seems like I've seen this for a long time, but it's really exciting to actually see things start to come together. I want to share with you one of these things that's coming together. So in the center is the yellow database there. That is AIM, where we're starting to pull some of these things together. But if you look at see if I can draw on here. If you look at the top here in these green boxes up here, these are the top end of the funnel, if you want to think of it as a funnel, a marketing funnel. So these are websites of the Adventist Church or other methods. So on the far right, we talk about inbound calls. So we take a lot of calls for the media ministries, but we also work on sites like A Picture of God. This is what the North American Division is working to build as we move forward. A funnel, not to AIM, it doesn't end at AIM, it ends at the local church. And so whether it's contacts that come through Adventist.org, where we will be putting chat in on that site, whether it's contacts that come in through social media or the NAD websites, we're looking to take every avenue that we can and begin to build those conversations and be there as a people, as a church, to answer people's questions. You have the Bible schools on the left side, where people are able to start studying, but we want to be there to answer their questions as they're studying, because everyone usually has some questions. And if they're just left to go Google that, We don't know where they're going to end up. And if we can be there to respond in a timely way, we can open those doors of conversation. And that comes in through AIM, and where we can care for them and begin to qualify the interests, see where they are, and start to move them in the right direction. And then from there, we connect them into the local church. So it's the funnel that we're working to build to make sure that those individuals get connected somewhere. I want to share with you a short case study. For the last year, we have been working with the Central California Conference. We started with 6 churches. We put ads on Facebook and Instagram for prayer. The basic ask was, do you want someone to pray for you? How can we do that? We're here. And we tried many different ways of ads, many different types of ads. And I'll share a couple. Most effective is very personal and localized ads. So it wasn't something that was generic, but it was something that came from that community, that was recorded in that community, or images of that community. And over 3 months of ads, we had over 1,400 contacts. People that were interested in having someone pray for them, or some of them as interested as showing up at the church. And within a short time saying, you've been praying for me, I want to come to your church. Where are you located? Where can we meet? And that period of time was finished in August of last year. And we still are having conversations. I say we, it's the churches that are having these conversations. 6 months later, with about, or even beyond, this is an older slide, but 30% of those people are still engaged in conversation. So what does it look like if you're browsing Facebook? This is one example, and I'll play the ad here for you.
Are you going through a lot right now? Does it feel like there's no way out? Life can get really tough sometimes. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. At Fresno Central, we are ready to pray for you. We don't use AI, but a team of men and women of God will be lifting you up in prayer. Just tap that button below and share your prayer request with us. And as your pastor and friend, I can assure you, good things will come your way.
Sorry, I just realized it was kind of quiet. So we placed many different ads like this. In fact, we did over 800 different ads between the 6 churches to try and see what works, what doesn't work. And I want to share with you a little bit of information about kind of the numbers and the types of things and what these different words mean. So this ad, this particular one, ran from August 3 to August 31. And we'll have impressions, reach, conversations, and then the cost per result. So the first thing is impressions. So an impression is, like I mentioned earlier, if I drive by the sign on the street, I've seen it, that was an impression. So if I drive by twice, that's 2 impressions. So if you're scrolling through Facebook and you see an ad and then you see that same ad again and you see it again, that's 3 impressions for that ad. The next piece is the reach. So the reach is you. It's that one, you are one on that ad. So this ad was seen 76,000 times by 19,000 people. So the next piece is the conversations. And the type of ads that we were doing were engagement ads. We wanted somebody to click the send a message to reach out. So in that time period, about a month, we had 167 people that clicked that and started a conversation. Now, we don't know from these numbers what happened to that conversation, and all of that varied. Sometimes it died right away, But many times it continued because we were there. We were responding. We were answering within 3 to 5 minutes of that initial send a message that it came in. So what was the cost per result? $5.18. So for $5.18 on this particular ad, we were able to get one conversation. Now, of course, that was averaged out over a full month, and quite a larger amount that was spent on that. You could actually do the math on that. I don't have it up here. But that gives you an idea of what digital advertising means. So impressions, just seeing the ad. Reach is the number of people that see the ad. And then the end result of that would, in this case, is conversations. So there are some ads that you want people to just click. And that's what the end result is. And then there is the cost per result. So what is your aim as a church? What is our aim collectively as an Adventist people? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to be seen? Or are we trying to meet people and reach people and connect with people? Marshall is going to continue from here, talking more about the conversation piece and what we go through with our students in the process and the training that we do for the local church.
To be completely honest, going back to that graph, when you see the 167 conversations, you don't realize that when you're having a conversation with someone and it's developing, they share with the people in their sphere. So even though you may get one conversation, we've had several that have said, I need to tell my friend when they start connecting with the church. So once you have that conversation, even though it may be one at first, can actually grow and be many. And so it's exciting looking at this process and understanding this process and how we've been developing the process. I want to actually take you back, though, just for a second. We were talking this morning, Brent and I, we were coming in, and I want to tell you that at any time as I'm moving through this presentation, if you have questions, feel free to ask, okay? I want this to actually feel like a live chat, okay? Does that make sense? It was kind of interesting that we're in the fireside room. It made me think of, I wasn't there, okay? But Roosevelt's fireside chat. The goal was he wanted to what? Through that chat, enter every single home. And I think we don't really understand what we actually have in our hands. And how in using it properly, we can actually enter by the grace of God every single home when you look at those percentages that Brent was sharing early on. And so in a sense, AIM is all about live chats. We want real conversations with real people ending in real results for the local church, for the conference, for the union, for all the things that are happening. So stop me at any time and ask any question you want based upon what we're going through. So Brent brought up, what's your aim? It's really important that you identify when we're using digital devices, what is the aim? Is the aim impressions, right? We just want to post, we just want to put content out there, and we hope that someone at some point will see it and maybe respond, okay? Or are we taking a more intentional approach to how we utilize the devices that we've been given? Answering this question is really crucial, because the goal ultimately is to connect the community with what? The local church. And we're finding with the digital approach, we can actually communicate and connect people to the local church much sooner than even we think. Because God right now is actually working in every single community while we sit right here. When we sleep at night, God is still at work. His Spirit is still moving. We get responses 11:30 at night, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. I could just go on and on, all times during the day. That's why I'm thankful AIM exists. Okay, I've been in ministry for 25 years, pastored, publishing director, and this was always kind of a missing component. And because it's important to be there when the people are there. And so I was very thankful. I actually started some time ago in my last work in a conference, an online Bible school that was interactive to try to help the church members. And I reached out to Brent and I'm like, listen, I can't handle responses as I'm trying to train the church members. I didn't know I'd end up at AIM, but I understood what could happen in partnering with that kind of response. Okay? Which allowed me the freedom to do some of the other things that I needed to do because the church ultimately is the one that needs to respond. But we have to get them there. And AIM is working to help churches, conferences, you get there in this area of response. Eventually, AIM's goal is to create digital missionaries in the local church to literally mimic what we're doing at AIM. So that they can respond. Yes, we will actually take them. Right now we're up till midnight, and then we're opening something in Walla Walla, which will give us 3 more hours, which gives us 21 hours a day, 7 days a week. Coverage. That's what we're building towards. But it's not just answering. I'll get more into the detail of the conversation. Because that's really important, how you're developing the conversation, because you're helping people across this bridge. Okay, so the way AIM looks at this is we break it down and we talk about a funnel, but we also talk about a bridge. Okay? And there are 7 spans to this bridge. And every span has its place, but you'll notice in the middle, this is kind of where AIM is really providing a lot of lifting for the church. Okay? In this middle section, lead, ministry qualified, lead, and opportunity. I'll define them here for you so you can kind of wrap your minds around how do you define each span in this bridge, okay? So the first one is seeker. How do we define a seeker, right? It's defined as a community person that appears hidden from the church, but through different personal circumstances is now seeking for something more, something better, as they are curiously reaching out. Listen, we have a lot of people who are seekers in our communities, around our churches. You know what is amazing to me is how the church can be in a community and the community doesn't know the church and the church doesn't know the community, but they live in the same demographic, the same geographical area. It's like, have you ever lived in a house and not known the family you live with? Right? Digital work helps us literally. It takes all those walls down. If we do this properly, it takes all those walls down. And I'll share with you how that happens. But the next span is the contact. Okay, so how we define a contact, right? It's defined by a community, is defined as a community contact that has decided to connect by responding to an attempt made by the church in reaching out invitationally through varying means of what? Broadcasting. We're very good at broadcasting, right? We put a lot of content out there. Now, there are some areas we could change our content based upon the demographic we're reaching out to, but that doesn't mean we're not putting content out there. Okay? When you look at the media ministries and you look at all the things that they're doing, the things that we put out there, there's a lot of content floating around. We do it through offering different types of help, whether it's through publishing, media, social media, digital media, local events. Okay? We're making an attempt to reach out. They become a contact when they actually reach back. Okay? So you go from impressions, right, to reach, to then what? Conversation. Okay? So they become a contact when they actually respond. So when we put an ad on a Facebook page, and that person, boom, connects, and it comes through, and we say, what's your prayer? And they type in, please pray for, and they give us a whole list of things to pray for. That becomes a contact, okay? The third span is a lead, how we look at these individuals as they develop. So what's a lead? And this is where it gets really exciting, because this is where the real work of conversation begins. Okay? So what's a lead? A lead is defined as a community interest. Notice the development. Because they have been showing genuine interest by responding how often? Regularly. You can find in social media, people can treat it like email. Remember we switched to email because snail mail, right? It moved too slowly. We wanted more real-time conversation, so they create email. And now email, how many people actually check their email? Right? Some people check it all the time, and some people, well, once every couple weeks I might check my email. But chatting, social media, texting is kind of now that new way of real-time conversation. Our goal is to develop regular conversations. When you actually are conversing online with somebody and you're going back and forth, they are now a lead. Okay? Because their commitment to you is developing. Because they're communicating with you more often, and it's important for us to be there to have that conversation. Okay? Regularly in conversation with the church's attempt for real, meaningful connection based on their initial interest. So I have initial interest, I develop the interest, they become a lead. Okay? Span 4 is a ministry qualified lead. You know, in conversation, and I find this, many times it starts out very general, or it starts out need-based, right? You find in Facebook when we say, please, click here, we'll pray for you. It's, I need finances, I need this, I need that, and it's just this whole bunch of needs, and we're dealing with like the specifics of the person, but we haven't gotten to the spiritual content yet, right? That development in faith, okay? And actually talking to them about like God. Some people are ready to go there, and they almost skip the lead in a sense because they want to talk about the spiritual thing, but they want to talk about it right away. Okay? They're a ministry qualified lead. We're qualifying. This is a process in how we're qualifying as we look at the development of an individual. Okay? So it's defined as a church interest. Now it's moved from community interest to a church interest because they have shown through repeated conversations an honest desire to develop a deeper conversation with the church in their area of biblical spirituality. Okay? And the fifth span is opportunity. So an opportunity is defined as a church contact because they have made repeated personal connections with the local church in moving past the indirect conversational connection to the direct personal connection. What do I mean by that? What do we mean by that? When you start communicating with someone online through this system, it's in a sense it's personal, but it's impersonal. We're not seeing each other face to face, right? So the goal is you want them to move from that, hey, we're communicating online to, oh, you want to come to church, to the community service building. Now all of a sudden they're meeting people for the first time face to face. And if they do that at least 3 times, 3 different ways in a 90-day period, they're more likely to stick with the church. 3 connection points within a 90. In other words, they come to community service. You get to know them a little bit face to face now. You still have the channel of the digital communication open. And then they come to a women's ministries event. And then they come to church on Sabbath. That's 3 different connection points that they made within that 90-day period. That's our goal. When our ministry specialists are communicating with people, and this is what we want to help the churches understand, how to walk through that process with people and how to help them make these transitions so that they can connect long-term with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Okay? Not just short-term. That's why I was excited about tyranny. Out of the blue, I'm working and ding, And I'm thinking, oh, she's ready to connect, like right now. If I waited 3 hours, if I waited 4 hours or a day, the chances of that drop off dramatically. But because I responded, like she said, right away within like 10 minutes, it was awesome to see how God put those pieces together so she could make, and by the way, they're studying with her daughter for baptism right now. This is what I said, a conversation, 167, think about that in relationship to the sphere of their influence. Okay? This is really powerful. And it's powerful to me because I'm seeing it over and over and over again. And I'll share some of the conversations, some of the things people actually say, and I could show you several right now. I could give you many conversations if you'd like to handle them. So this ultimately is summarized this way, right? You have a community person becoming a community contact, that becomes a community interest, that becomes a church interest, that becomes a church contact, that becomes what? A church person. The last two, membership, discipleship. Okay? That's not our responsibility. Guess whose responsibility ultimately that is? It's the church, right? So this is where AIM is really focusing in relationship to the tools and the management and that system that Brent was talking about, is we want to zero in right here. We want to help not only us be able to do it, but your church do it as well. This is what was exciting. Those phase 1 churches that we were working with are now creating their own digital missionary teams to replicate what we were doing in the beginning. And I've been meeting with them and we've been working through the process, and it's exciting. I will, at some point, I'll read possibly an email that I received from one of the team leaders. It says, lead, ministry qualified lead, opportunity. These are the transitional stages. Okay? So when we consider what's your aim, right? When you're using digital media, what's your aim? Is it this? Okay? Because this is ultimately where the rubber meets the road in digital evangelism. You know, I was sitting in church. Now you're going to look at me and say, okay, he's in church. Should be listening to the pastor when he's preaching. I'm getting messages on my phone from community people, literally one person saying, can you help me find God? Now, in the middle of church, should I put it down to listen to the pastor? Or should I answer the response? That's where the rubber meets the road. Seriously. As Seventh-day Adventists, we should be able to respond to these people anytime, anywhere, because literally it's in our hands. And this is what's so exciting in this process, is because we're not going to just use the devices to connect with our friends. We're going to make new friends. Not just by the tens and hundreds, but literally by the thousands. By the thousands. And it can be done. We don't have to just win tens. Now we can win hundreds and even thousands. Okay? With real engagements, real conversation. Okay? We've already seen the ad. This ad placement brought in, matter of fact, this church had over 400 contacts. They were a church size of about 160, 170 average attendance on a Sabbath. They had 400 people that responded to the prayer ad. They were overwhelmed. We had to stop. This is the other thing about ads. We can turn them on. We can turn them off. They were so overwhelmed that we had to turn it off. Okay? Would you love to be inundated like that? Sometimes we're thinking, I don't know. Okay? They were overwhelmed, and it made them stop and think about how they were doing ministry. Because all of a sudden they had this list of issues that they weren't even thinking of. You know, many times when we do ministry, can I be honest with you? It's guesswork. We guess how we're going to reach the community. Let's try this. Let's try that. And all we tend to hear from is our Adventist brothers and sisters, who, by the way, are a blessing. But if they're not connected to their community, it becomes an echo chamber. And so now, through this process, you have the ability to actually listen to your community. And it revises how you do ministry, how you plan to do ministry. The church here that I'm showing this ad, that we showed this ad earlier, they've developed 2 teams now. They have a digital missionary team that we work to set up. Now they have a fellowship team. Why? Because you have one that's literally communicating and the other one is going out doing the visits and connecting. Because they realize they have to be able to do both equally. So it's literally reshaping how they do church. Because they're really hearing from the community. Okay? I'm gonna give you an example, but I want to read you something that I think you would find very interesting. Okay? But I'm just going to run down the list of issues they are dealing with as a result of the conversations, not just the content, but the conversations they're having. She writes, these are the themes of the conversations. Relationships, divorce, addiction, job need, job training, finances, at risk for homelessness, primary trauma, secondary trauma, alcoholism, tobacco use, depression, anxiety, spiritual distress, widows, children placed in foster care, transportation problems, homelessness, illness, food insecurity. They're still working with the original group from that 400. They still have over almost about 100 contacts. Maybe it's a little bit below that. And out of that, she said, we currently have 4 Bible studies, 2 requesting baby dedication, 1 pre-marriage counseling, 4 job training, 1 severe mental illness support, 4 food clothing support. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? From this process. And they're trying to get themselves together fast enough because they could have more, not less. When we connect with the community intimately in conversation, it will literally reshape how we do ministry and allow us to do it effectively. And then we'll start hitting the bullseye, so to speak. Okay? It's been so exciting to see this process take place. I'm just going to show you. Let me put this back up for you. I'm going to show you. So I went on these. So because we use Facebook Messenger, right now we use Facebook. Okay? And so what we do is we place the ad on Facebook. The church itself has its own Facebook page. And then we encourage the conference to get Meta, right? Meta Business, it's free. Then you can connect those Facebook pages to the Meta account. We at AIM then in turn connect to the Meta account so that we have access to the inbox so that we can do immediate response. Okay? These are all the churches we were connected to and helping. And this is just the responses in one church. Okay? From an ad that went out. I get notifications every day of people responding to those ads. And by the way, for some of those churches, the ads have been shut off for months. But people are still connecting. Okay? This is happening regularly. Conversations are key. Content is like general revelation, right? But the conversation is like specific revelation. And by the way, one day that revelation will be face to face, right? Jesus is coming. And we're going to see him face to face. This is what I love about conversations and the power of conversations and the importance of conversations. Okay? John chapter 1 verse 1 says, in the beginning was the what? Interesting how he's defined as the Word. You know what we use in digital? Right? When you're texting somebody, what are you doing? You're sharing words. Okay? So literally at the basic level, conversation is literally, if we can get so well at our church members having really good conversations, we could see a lot more progress in connecting with the community. Okay? Using digital platforms and digital devices for conversation. This is why I love using digital devices. Okay? It's non-threatening. Okay? They don't know me. I don't know them. They just know what they saw. They saw an ad that specifically prayer, or they went to the picture of God and they saw these Bible studies and I'm on the chat on the other end. And by the way, because it's in my hand, like I said, I can take it everywhere with me. I can respond to people all the time. If I need to be able to do that, I can do that. Okay, so it's non-threatening. That's why a lot of people respond to the prayer ads. Okay, they're just reaching out. Now it's important that the church be ready to respond. And the church has to look at how it is perceived. What does your Facebook page look like? Do you even manage it? What kind of content are you putting on it? Is the content for the community, or is the content just for the Adventists, but we say it's for the community? Okay? So it's important. It's non-threatening. People will come there, but they also get a picture of you. Number 2, people can work on their devices in private if they're learning for the first time. You know, there's some people out there that want to reach out to God, but they may be influenced by their friends not to. But on my device, in the privacy of my own home or in my own room, I can actually respond to something that's put online. And guess what? There's nobody there to judge me. Nobody there to judge me. So I can do this all day in private. And I can grow. And I want to tell you something. When I worked in the Middle East, I was the publishing director for the Middle East North African Union. And you realize in some of those countries, they use devices more than anything else. 28 hours a day in one country. That means they were on 2 devices at a time. Why? Because it's private. Well, yes. But there are ways of being private. But they can experience things. They can ask questions. They can do things that they wouldn't do in a group like this at all. Okay? It begins simply with language. You know, there's minimal barriers. Right? Gender's not a barrier. This is not a barrier. It's what? Words. Words aren't barriers. Now, the way we use them, we can certainly make barriers by the way we communicate. But in the beginning, there's no barriers. This is what's so wonderful about it. And number 4, you have to really pay attention to what someone is saying. You know, when I work with the ministry specialists and even church members as we're helping to develop their digital missionary teams, it's like people respond, but they didn't even listen to what the person wrote. It's like when someone writes a text, you have to stop and actually read and listen to what that person is actually saying. So it's a way in which you can learn how to communicate more effectively through typing so that you're more effective in speaking. And you pay more attention to people when they're talking to you. Okay? And I could just literally go on. These are 4 of the key points in relationship to conversation that is so important. Okay? And these are ways digitally that we can connect. And I want to tell you, our churches need to be able to learn to do this. Really learn to do this and learn to do this effectively. So I want to share something with you, and I threw in the bridge concept because it is. I want you to understand, this is huge for me, okay? And I hope it is for you. So this yellow line is God, okay? This yellow line is God. God, in our society, in our world, God is the most constant of everything around us. He's always there. He's active. He doesn't lie. He's always the same, okay? So this is God. The white line is us. This is man, we're so fickle, right? From one day to the next, our minds change. We grasp onto something that maybe 2 days later we say, oh, what did I do that for? And then you do, and so humanity goes through these highs and lows, right? We go up and we go down. We go up, we go down. And we have all kinds of professions to help with this process. But in the meantime, while we're doing this, right, God is doing this. In this process, these X's are connection points. I want you to catch this. So a seeker is that white line moving up and down. And in his lifetime, there are points within his lifetime that he's going to think about who? Because God is constant. He's always there. He's just waiting for opportunity. He's very patient. So something may happen in someone's life. All of a sudden they lose a loved one that they were very close to, and they start thinking about what happens after that. Is where God and that person have intersected. But then the funeral's over, time goes on, they forgot their question, and they go on living. And guess what happens in life? They keep doing this. Until somebody comes up to them and mentions I learned about the Sabbath. And they're like, never heard of that before. And they start to think, what's this Sabbath thing? What is that? That's a connection point. It's another intersecting point. It's an opportunity for them to be a contact. Okay? With our advertising, we create sometimes these connection points. The problem is, you'll notice in the white lines, they're far apart. They happen once. Another year, you do another evangelistic series and you've reached the same person, right? A whole year has gone by. And then there's another connection point. And another year has gone by. But we can change that with our digital devices. This is how we can change that. And this is awesome. We can actually take and change the demographic and change the experience of people if we're willing to converse with them all the time. Because as soon as they experience, right? All of a sudden, they become a contact, right? And then we start a conversation, which means we are connecting more often. And through the conversation, we connect more often and more often and more often. And the purpose of our conversation, notice, the gaps of highs and lows, they decrease. And what's happening in their life through our conversation with them and then connecting them to the local church means no more of these highs and lows, but they get to a place where they are walking with God. And they are having a conversation with God on a regular basis because they first had a conversation with you because you were the representation. You represented God. And because you were willing to have that conversation, now those connection points are happening all the time. And guess what? They bring other people into the process. So that eventually we are all what? Walking with God. Do not underestimate what you have in your hands and how you can use it to have regular conversations. With people, you have no clue who they are, where they're from, what their background is. You get to put all that aside and just take them for who they are and where they are and help develop them from there so that eventually they're walking with God. What ultimately? They're a contact. They become a lead. They become a ministry qualified lead, and eventually they're an opportunity. At some point, they're connecting with the local church, and now they're just walking with God. This is the message of Revelation. Come out of her. Right? Join my people. How does that happen? It's not just through content. It's through conversation. Jesus gave this example in the Gospels over and over and over again. But we've kind of created our own echo chamber. We love talking to each other, but we have no clue how to talk to the community. You know, it's interesting. Some of the questions, matter of fact, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. This is very interesting. Always, notice, he says what? Always. Okay? Always. You're always carrying this. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness, I love this, and respect. Okay? Always be prepared. These are some of the questions that we got just on a picture of God. I didn't have time. I mean, I could share all kinds of things from Facebook that we've been getting and the conversations and stuff. But I'm just going to share. These literally come through the chat. Okay? That means somebody's reaching out, and I get these daily. Okay? I'm asking you guys, these are what they put in the chat. I'm asking you guys to assist me on starting, maintaining, and now relationship with God. They're asking us. I want you to help me do this. Another, hey there, is it true that there will be people from other religions in heaven? If so, where's the proof? Now, you have 5 minutes to answer that question. I would love to test you right now and give you 5 minutes to answer it so that you will continue the conversation, not shut it down. Okay? Then another one. I want to know how to study the Bible in depth. Looking for information, don't know where to start. I would like to know about your religion. Now, question, are you going to write a book? Or just give them a link? Hey, you want to study about our religion here? I'm just going to pass you off to a website. Right? Because if I pass you off to the website, it'll take care of it. No, it won't. Because they're still going to have questions and there's nobody there to answer them. Okay? Another one. My question is, what's the fate of those people who don't know the truth, but they follow what they know truthfully? Okay? How to find peace and joy. Another one. I would like the ministry to help me better understand the Bible. I could share others. There's just literally hundreds. When I talked about how the community is no longer hidden and the church is no longer hidden, we asked the churches that we work with, can you give us a plan? We want to know what ministries that you do in your church and what ministries you are working with in the community. Okay, to provide services. So the church that I was sharing with you, they have become much more connected to even the community services as well as in the church. So they lead them to the community service, but they're walking with them, and they walk full circle right back to the church. So they're realizing they don't have it all, but they're connecting much more intentionally with the community services that are provided. And it's important for churches to do that. We've kind of created our own little sphere, which is important, I get that. But sometimes as a small church, we don't have all the connections, but we live in communities. What connections in the community can we connect people to? So, but it's good to have a wide range of people within your group of experience and then connect with the people in your community. And that's what they're doing. Like job training, they had somebody from the community come and do a job training session. And then they invited those contacts that they've been building relationships with to that job training, and they identified who it was that needed the job training. So it wasn't this, they just weren't blanketing it for everybody. They were becoming much more intentional because they were able to split things up. And now they're becoming much more effective in reaching the people where they are. These are things we talk about. Go ahead, Brent.
When they come to this church, that they're able to get help in these areas, and the members then have an open avenue of communication to them, not just in those specific areas, but beyond.
Yeah. And it's been exciting. It's been exciting to see. Also, it's important because we geo-target these ads. When we do this on Facebook, we geo-target the ads 10-mile radius around the church. So you know that most of the people that are responding to the ad are within a 10-mile radius of the church. But there are some people that drive through, catch the ad, and then they drive away. And they've had some people an hour and a half, 2 hours away, but they still, because it's on social media, the church now is developing the contact until they can pass it to the sister church that's in their area. And so now all these dividing lines of territories and who has what is literally being broken down. And we have to, like that presentation that was done earlier, the churches came together for that series. This is forcing us to do more and more and more of that. And it's really exciting to see how that works. I was going to read you something. So this came up. I literally was in a meeting at the time, because I keep this stuff open all the time. If I'm in a meeting, whatever, and sometimes I stop because of the question that comes across. I'm like, this is live, I can't, and I tell the people around me, sorry. I tell others, I gotta take this because the student didn't jump on right away, and so I'm like, hey, I'm there, I'm in, and I jumped in. So this was their question. So put yourself in my shoes for a second. This comes across your screen. Good afternoon. Who is God Almighty, Yahweh, or someone else? So that's your question. They're online. It's a live chat. You have just minutes to respond. Okay? So I wrote back. I said, he's Yahweh. That is the short answer. Glad you're on the site. Enjoy the lessons. And then I wrote, he's also Almighty as well. If you have any other questions or would like further clarification, please feel free to respond. Right? And then they responded. It's live. I was like, okay, we're going to do this. This is great. I'm testing the waters, see where we're going to go. Yahweh is one. According to today's doctrine, God is three. Yahweh, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Please clarify. So now that I'm in a conversation, I realize I can give them a little bit more. So then I answer, God is one. The Godhead is another term for divinity or deity in Scripture. God or divinity belongs to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus said, when you have seen me, you have seen the Father. When the Bible is speaking of Yahweh or Jehovah, it's not just referring to the Father, although in some cases it is in context, but we have to remember that they are all God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, are all powerful, all caring, all loving. Their natures are exactly alike. And this is what they wrote back. So I typed that out in probably about 5 minutes. What's nice on live chat is they can see the 3 dots moving so they know someone is responding, even though it gives them a second. It gives me a little bit of time. They wrote back, my wife and I are looking for a Sabbath church, but we need some clarifications on doctrines. Would it be possible for us to meet? The first meeting could be at church or by phone and them see what happens. I said, sure, we would love to meet with you and your wife to work through any questions you may have. If you would we can connect by phone first. We're starting little bits. I'm not going to say, by the way, this is a whole nother training thing that I don't have time to get into. Okay? But I'm taking the option of, hey, here's the phone. That's the furthest thing away. They started with the chat. We'll move to the phone, and then eventually we'll move to what? In person. Remembering the bridge. We're taking people step by step. Each church needs to start thinking about a digital missionary team with a leader. Doesn't have to be the pastor, but with a leader, someone that can organize, because I work with that leader. I'll help the leader, okay? And the leaders. The other thing is that, and then training them how to be receptive, you got your phone, be ready. It's funny, even working with young people, I'll be like, are your notifications on? Oh yeah, they're on. And I look and I'm like, no, they're not on. Here, let me show you how to turn your notifications on. Okay? So then because they're learning that, hey, even though I'm not on, I can still respond. If it's something short or brief, I can do that. So teaching people just to be aware, having my notifications on, being connected, and then invested. The other thing, so the team is one area. The other thing is, as pastors and elders, we have situations where people like this, at some point, we're going to find out exactly where they are. By the way, we got their phone number, and our lead ministry specialist at one of the seminary called them, and they meet Friday nights now over the phone. But eventually, there's going to come a time when we're going to have to connect them to what? And we want to do it sooner rather than later. But as soon as we find out what area they live in, what church they're close to, we're going to contact the church. Is the church accessible? I'm telling you, this is the number one issue. Period. When I was pastoring, I would take the church phone, forward it to my phone to make sure there was always a connection. Okay? You don't have to do that in a large church, but if you have people, that team, that are dedicated to this process, then we know we will be able to get somebody. I was thankful. You heard the story of Tyranny. I was sitting there when she was looking for a church to worship in. I was like, Lord, please let the pastor answer. Because I get it. Okay, I get it. And I went online really fast, and this is the amazing thing about it. I go online really quick, and I'm looking for this church, because I ask her, so where do you live? And what type of community are you looking for? Okay, because she said community. I want her to define for me what community, because I'm not just going to ship her off somewhere that doesn't work. She said, I'm looking, for a faith community, right? So she didn't specify. So I'm like, great. So, and I said, where do you live? She said, Horn Lake, Mississippi. And I'm like, okay, Horn Lake, Mississippi. So I go online, I'm like asking her a question, giving her time to process while I'm trying to find the church, doing double duty. This is what I mean by investment. Okay? So I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm going to find the church. And I found this Horn Lake, Mississippi. That's all that hit my mind. So I called the church, not realizing it was Horn Lake Road, and it wasn't in Mississippi. And so I'm like, oh no. So the pastor answered, because I'm like, so are you the pastor in like Horn Lake, Mississippi? He said, Horn Lake, Mississippi? We're in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. I have this contact online right now, and she's looking for a community to be with. Okay? And then he's like, well, this is Pastor Corey Jackson. I didn't realize he and I pastored together in Michigan for many years. And I'm like, Corey. And he's like, Marshall? Anyway, he's like, I'm 10 minutes away from Horn Lake, Mississippi. So I'm like, praise the Lord. Connected him. Then said, listen, you got to get off the phone right now. You and I can talk later. I want to know how this goes. And I wrote her back. Did he contact you? Did he follow up? All of these things are key issues that we do not think about. I will tell you, we had 4 people ready for personal Bible studies. We've been weeks trying to get a hold of the pastor, even the conference sometimes. You have to be accessible. If we're really, Brent and I were talking about this. Listen, our goal is to what? Seek the lost, help them to be found. What is worst is seeking the lost and leaving them lost. And never helping them be found. Can you imagine putting something on your Facebook page, putting yourself out there, and then nobody's there to respond? Do you realize how people respond to that? Yeah. So it's this whole thing. So being accessible, having a digital team, learning how, and we can help you with that, learning how to update your presence digitally. Okay? Learning how to use content for the purpose of conversation. Now I'm going to throw another one out. We're creating a knowledge base too for our ministry specialists. We publish books, which is wonderful. And we have some really good books that aren't very accessible for witnessing digitally. So that I can just grab snippets and use within my conversation and then point people back. It all revolves around conversation. If we would take conversation seriously, we could connect all of these different things. And because we do, this is why we're connected. We don't want the lost to stay lost. Okay? We want the lost to really be found. And that's why we're doing this with conversation. The thing is, what's nice about ads and digitally, you can turn them on, turn them off. So if a church says our capacity is 10, we can disciple 10. Then our goal would get you to the place where you have 10, right? And we're working with a church right now. We're working out the particulars of working with a church where they only have 9 people in the congregation. Okay? But it's possible. It only takes one reaching one. If we really took that seriously, we would have multiplication. Okay? And digitally, it's helping us make it that way. Okay? Which is really exciting. You realize there are a lot of contacts. The same system can be used for planting a church. If you know, the biggest thing is the team you have planting the church. Okay? You'll get contacts. We started this with even a school, right? We've been doing some Adventist schools. And soon as these ads go, we had like 60 people to start conversing with. And remember, the process of the bridge is qualifying. Okay? Because some people just give you emojis. That's not a bad thing. but we were always there to talk to them. Then they stopped talking. 2 months later, something happened. They came back and now they're in Bible studies. Okay? So you can use it that way. So you'll get people. That's the thing. You'll get, the point is, do I have a team to be able to invest in those conversations? And then do I have a plan to take those conversations to something more personal along the way so that eventually they can come into the church? This is actually happening. Well, San Francisco Central is doing some of this. So we have San Francisco Central has a Portuguese Bible worker and team, and they are actually doing this for that very purpose. They're doing the exact same thing we're talking to, what we did in Central Cal. They're just replicating it, but with the intention that they want to plant a church. I think it's important. We need to be careful. In my mind, I was a church growth director, and so we dealt with church planting and different things. I think we have to be careful not to make what currently exists compete with what we're starting. Because you run the risk of saying, hey, we're doing it over here because we're ready and you're not. Do you follow what I'm saying? But both can be used in both scenarios to revitalize, because ultimately planted church should come from revitalized churches. We should be growing them. Yeah, totally. Because it's the community. You're inviting the community in. But the key is just having it, again, it's like on Sabbath. Here's the other thing, is that it's important. It also revises how sometimes we deliver messages from the front. Because when you start realizing, I got the community coming into my church, not just the Seventh-day Adventist congregation, all of a sudden you have to realize, wait, we got to change even the delivery of the message, but are the people ready for that are in the church already? So, yeah. So it's important how we deliver those messages, but it all comes out of these conversations. Matter of fact, we had 2 that came from Facebook into the church one Sabbath, and the pastor didn't know at the time, okay? And so he was preaching normally as he's preaching to his congregation, but the people from Facebook thought, is he preaching to us? They didn't understand. And so he needed to be reminded that, hey, you've got some people from the community that are actually coming now from this process. And so it shifts how even you deliver your message. But you can deliver better when you're constantly communicating with the community on a regular basis also. So it helps the pastor if he's also engaged with the contacts, because then all of a sudden it changes even his delivery from the front.
Reflection is a key part of growth, which is why we encourage it so strongly at the Propel Conference. So take some time right now to think about the insights that Brent and Marshall shared. How can you apply these ideas to your own ministry? What resonated with you the most? What steps are you inspired to take? And once this episode ends in another minute or so, please spend 5 or 10 minutes in quiet reflection. This time can be incredibly valuable for both personal and professional growth. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to email us at podcast@propelconference.org. And don't forget to mark your calendar for next year's Propel Conference in Tacoma, Washington, April 27 to 30, 2025. We hope to see you there. A heartfelt thanks to Brent Hardinge and Marshall McKenzie for their insightful contributions to the 2024 Propel Conference, and to Seminars Unlimited for their sponsorship of this episode. This has been the Propel Podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. The Propel Podcast is produced by the crew at Sermon View, and the event recording services were provided by Adventist Learning Community. I'm Larry Witzel, wishing you God's richest blessing in your evangelistic journey. Please join us again next time for another episode of the Propel Podcast.